90% of relationships could be saved by a single conversation, and almost nobody has it. You're sitting across from him or her at dinner, same table, same Tuesday, same, how's your day? Fine. How was yours? Fine. And somewhere in the back of your brain, a little voice is whispering, we're not okay. But you ignore it. You scroll, you eat, you go to bed, and that little whisper, that is not paranoia. That is a conversation you have been avoiding for 6 months, finally knocking on the door. And the reason most people never have it is not because they don't know how, it's because they're terrified of what their partner might actually say. So stay with me and watch the whole thing, because by the end of this video, you will know 3 questions every couple should be asking each other. Why we run from them like, they owe us money, and how to bring this up to a partner who treats, deep talks like a personal attack. So let me break this down for you. The conversation has a name. It's called the State of the Union, not the political one, not the one when everyone yells at their TV and pretends that they understand foreign policy. No, I'm talking about the relationship one, and the concept, well, it's extremely simple. Once a month, you and your partner sit down together. No phones, no kids, running through the room, no Netflix is paused in the background. And you ask each other 3 questions. That's it. 3 questions. It's less than an hour, cheaper than therapy, faster than a fight, and significantly more effective than the 4-hour blow-up you would have had, 3 weeks from now over something that started as a misunderstanding about, who left the dishes in the sink. You see, the damage rarely shows up where you think it will, right? It's not the cheating. It's not the explosion. Relationships die the way a tire goes flat, slowly, quietly, one tiny leak at a time. And by the time you finally notice, well, you're on the side of the highway in the rain, Googling tow trucks, wondering how on earth you got there. That little leak, well, it's the conversation that you keep avoiding and not having. But here's the truth that nobody wants to print on a damn coffee mug. You cannot fix what you refuse to name. And look, I get it. There's a reason most people avoid this conversation like the IRS, because the second you actually sit down and ask, what are we avoiding right now? You have to be ready to hear an answer, right? And most of us would rather argue about, whose turn it is to take out the trash for the next 15 years than spend 45 honest minutes finding out our partner has felt, unappreciated since 2022. Real quick, before we get into the 3 questions, if you get any value out of my videos, then go follow me on Instagram right now. I try to post daily reels, daily stories, and raw advice that never make it here on YouTube. I'm talking about those midnight thoughts, the unfiltered takes. I'm going to leave my link to my Instagram down in the description below and on the pinned comment as well. But for now, let's get back to the video and go over the 3 questions that every couple should be asking each other. Question number 1, what is working between us right now? It's very important that you start positive, always, because the human brain is a weird, dramatic little animal. The second that you open with, we need to talk. Well, your partner's nervous system, it goes in bunker mode, right? Cortisol spikes, walls go up, defense lawyers get hired in their head, and they have not even heard the case yet. But if you open with, what is working? You signal to their entire body that this is a safe table, right? Not a courtroom. And here's a line that I want you to write down. You cannot fix a relationship from a defensive crouch, right? You can only fix it from an open hand. Question number 2, what is something you have been missing or wishing we had more of lately? Now, this question right here, this is the one that separates couples who grow from couples who, quietly resent each other for a decade, because most of us, we don't communicate needs. We communicate disappointments. We don't always say, hey, I need more physical touch. What we say is, you never hug me anymore. And we say it, 3 months later in the middle of a fight about something completely unrelated. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Now, the words you say to the person you love either build the temple or burn it down. And question number 3, this question is the one that makes most people sweat through a perfectly good shirt. The question is, what is something we are both avoiding talking about? Now, this is the question that scares people because there's always something. Always. The unanswered question about money, the comment that they made at the Christmas party that you swore you let go, but You did not. The way that you have been looking at each other lately when you think that no one is watching. There's always a sentence sitting in the room like an uninvited guest eating all the chips, right? And the only thing standing between you and peace is whether you have the courage to name it out loud. See, a relationship, it's only as healthy as the conversations that you are most afraid to have. Now stay with me, because this next part is the part that most people, they get backwards, right? The State of the Union, it's not a fight. It is the exact opposite of a fight. A fight is what happens when 3 months of unspoken things finally explode, in the kitchen at 9:47 on a Wednesday night over absolutely nothing. The State of the Union is what happens when you refuse to let it ever get to that point. It's preventive medicine for your relationship. And I already know what some of you are thinking right now. Well, my partner would never sit down for this. He shuts down. She gets defensive. He, acts like deep talks are personal attacks on his entire ancestry. Cool. Well, here's how you bring it up without scaring them off. You do not announce it like a board meeting, right? You do not slide a calendar invite across a dinner table with the subject line, "We need to talk." No, you're gonna scare them. So what you do is you sit down like on a Sunday morning, hand them a cup of coffee, look at them in the eye and say, "I love what we have. I just want to make sure that we keep building it instead of just maintaining it. Can we try something for an hour once a month?" That's it. You frame it as protection, not surgery. Remember, iron sharpens iron. That's from Proverbs chapter 27. The right relationship, it's supposed to sharpen you, strengthen the parts that need strengthening. But iron, it does not sharpen itself by sitting next to other iron in a drawer or in the corner of your room. There has to be friction, right? There has to be a lot of friction, an honest, intentional, loving friction. And the State of the Union, well, is that friction. It's controlled, scheduled, on purpose, done with love in your hand, not a weapon. So understand that the conversation that you keep avoiding is the conversation that will save you, or it will reveal that there's nothing left to save. And both of those answers, painfully as they are mercy. Because the worst outcome of this is not a hard truth, because you see, a hard truth, it's survivable. Hard truth gives you something to work with. But the worst outcome is 10 more years of pretending while quietly becoming strangers, eating cereal across from someone that you used to know everything about. So here's what I want you to do this week. Sit down with your partner and ask the 3 questions. Listen more than you talk. Resist the urge to defend yourself before they have even finished the sentence. And see what actually comes up. You might leave the table, closer than you've been in years. You might cry. They might cry. They might admit something that you suspected but never really asked about. Or you might finally know what you have been pretending not to know. Either way, you win, because clarity is always better than comfort. So if you got any value out of this video, then please share it with someone who needs to have this conversation before the silence does the talking for them. Because love, it's not about avoiding the hard talks. Love is about being the kind of person that your partner can have the hardest talk of their life with and still feel, completely, undeniably safe. And as always, don't forget to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.